Hello, and welcome to episode 9 of the Bitcoin Hour. I am Dave Bradley. I'm coming to you from my lair deep beneath the city of Calgary once again, and I've got my very fancy mimosa and lovely cigar in hand. And I think those are the perfect companions for what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about how Bitcoin fixes dating. And this is a tricky one. There's a lot of angles here because really the problems that you might describe with dating, like what is actually wrong with dating in the world right now, go back to some really fundamental things about the world and about society and about how we treat each other and we interact with each other. And so you really have to get back to like the 10,000 foot view to see all the different ways that Bitcoin or hard money can essentially affect something that is really fundamental to a lot of people's lives, like dating. So I can come up with a few different ways that the Bitcoin can fix dating, and I think all of them are real, and the final answer is kind of a combination of all of those. And so the most obvious one, which I think we're starting to see now, and that comes with the price increase of Bitcoin, is that holding Bitcoin can actually make you more attractive to the opposite sex. And that's coming very directly right now in the sense that, Bitcoiners are, sort of a newly rich class. Bitcoiners are people who suddenly have resources that they did not have in the past. And having more resources inevitably makes you a more attractive partner to the opposite sex. Some people don't really like that answer, but it is the truth. And that also comes along with a bit of an opinion on a person's decision making. If you see that someone has made a decision to invest in Bitcoin and hold it for the long term, that's an indication that that person is engaging in long-term thinking. And so I think that long-term thinking and good decision making is also something that can make you a lot more attractive to the opposite sex. And I believe that will kind of be part of the next iteration of how people start to view Bitcoiners. Is we'll be, we used to be the weird guy at the family dinner that wouldn't stop talking about money printing, and more, we're getting to be viewed as people who have actually made the right choice about something very important, which is the choice of what kind of money we use or how we store the value that we create with our time. And so just, being somebody with more resources, with better decision making, that's kind of the most obvious one. That's sort of the superficial material way that Bitcoin can fix dating, not really broadly, but for some specific Bitcoiners, for the individuals who have taken that path and demonstrated that they are a good choice as a partner because of those reasons. The next thing that can't be ignored is how our society, and much of this is driven by fiat culture, much of this is driven by initiatives from the government, has really undermined what masculinity and femininity mean. And in a lot of ways, this goes back to the women's liberation movement, the desire to bring women into the workforce, which I think ultimately is a positive thing. We're all better off because we have more women in the workforce, and both the women in the workforce and the companies that they're working for and with are all better off for that. But I think what was ignored in that change, because it was, and generally is broadly viewed as a very positive change, but the side of that was not, which was not necessarily positive about that, was the shift from a single income family into a dual income family. And at the time, it kind of seemed innocuous, but ultimately that shift and the fact that two incomes have become first very common and now nearly ubiquitous have hidden a lot of the impacts of inflation, right? It used to be pretty normal for a single breadwinner to support a family of 4, 5, 6 people on a single income at a pretty normal job. And that's just something that's not really realistic for most people in this day and age. And the fact is that most families need two incomes. And that need for two incomes has kind of brought the gender roles a little bit closer together. It's sort of forced women to take on some of the more masculine roles in the world. And that's, I think, left less room for men to take on those roles, and has ultimately led them both men and women as groups to feeling a little bit lost, to feeling like they don't know where they fit or where they should be going. And I think under a Bitcoin standard, when in a world where a single earner, a man or a woman, can earn enough value with their time, with what they do for other people, they're creating value for other people. When you can earn enough value and reliably store it over time, there's no reason that a family shouldn't be able to exist on a single income. We've seen that. And, frankly, there is a lot more wealth in the world than there was in 1950, 1960. And so there should be a lot more wealth to go around, but instead that wealth is being printed into new money and spent by the government. And so if we remove their ability to siphon that wealth away, refocus on being able to store our wealth, suddenly the more traditional family unit becomes a much more attractive thing, right? We've seen nowadays that the traditional family unit has not only been sort of inflated out of existence, the fact that you now need two incomes, but we've also seen the government propping up the single parent family unit, right? You in fact need two incomes, but if you don't have a second income, you can rely on the government to be that second income. And so I think if we remove all of those factors, then ultimately at the big picture level, it's going to refocus what people are actually looking for in dating, right? Like there's a lot of things that people look for, but at the end of the day, most of what people are looking for is a good long-term partner. And so if we have people that are engaging in long-term thinking, making good decisions, who can store their value over time in an asset that will not be printed away, we have a lot of conditions that, I don't think it'll fix dating overnight, but it at least provides a context for where everything can fit together in a way that sort of no longer undermines that traditional family unit. And then beyond that, the third way that I think Bitcoin ultimately fixes dating and a whole lot of other things is that it brings us to a much more long-term way of thinking. Ultimately, right now, a lot of people in our culture, somewhat rationally, because our money does not incentivize long-term thinking. A lot of people are trapped in not only short-term thinking, but a very short-term gratification loop. And that's something that anybody who's tried online dating has seen, is that there is there is a very short communication cycle. Everyone who's on there is disposable. Every interaction is just one more in a long series of somewhat shallow interactions. And so I think changing our view at the very high level as a society, which is something that I think ultimately Bitcoin fixes, because Bitcoin incentivizes that long-term thinking, that should itself also trickle down into people's decisions about dating. And as those kind of long-term decisions, as the decision to seek a stable partner who wants to make a long-term future with you becomes more rational, more and more people will make that decision. And so I don't think Bitcoin can ever really fix dating. Ultimately, it's a problem of, more like something that needs to be done. You need to get out there and find the person that you want to be with. That's not necessarily something that's wrong with the world, but all of these obstacles that people face when dating that are caused by the fiat system, those are things that are wrong with the world. And ultimately, I think we can remove a lot of those obstacles from our world and make dating at least a little bit more straightforward and less confusing, if not comfortable and easy for everyone. So I think those are the main three ways that Bitcoin fixes dating. And we're now about 9.5 minutes, a little over 9 minutes into this recording, and unfortunately, I am getting word that the government, in their infinite wisdom, has decided to steal the rest of this episode and the rest of this hour. And so we're just coming up on 10 minutes. The government took the remaining 50, and as a result, that's all you get.